We have lots to cover in today's video, including the latest trade talk heading into the offseason for teams like the Ottawa Senators, the Vancouver Canucks, and will the Nashville Predators trade star goalie Juuse Saros? We now have an idea for a team like New Jersey, what it might cost for an acquisition. We have a suspension to discuss. Longtime NHLer Wayne Simmonds is officially retiring. We also have some other news around the league, including some key updates from the NHL GM meetings. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover in today's video, so let's dive right in and get started. Before we jump into the NHL news, I just want to acknowledge quite an accomplishment in Canadian university hockey. My hometown, University of New Brunswick Reds, where I attended university myself, they had quite an accomplishment this year. They have been a powerhouse in the university men's hockey sport for a long time. Head coach Gardner McDougall's been there for over 20 years now. One of the best coaches outside of the NHL, most accomplished for sure. They just completed a perfect season, winning the national championship for the second straight year, and this is the 9th time in his 24-year run that he's led the team to a national championship. But this year they went 30-0 in the regular season, 38-0 including their playoff games to win their conference in the AUS, and then of course their tournament games in the University Cup National Championship Tournament. So quite an accomplishment. During the National Championship Tournament for the University Cup, they also did not allow a single goal. So that is amazing when you think about it. Obviously, little bias being, where I went to school, my hometown, but, university hockey in Canada doesn't quite get the recognition, doesn't quite get the fanfare that U.S. college hockey does. It's not really, I wouldn't call it the same level. A lot of the players that play university hockey are guys that played major junior, but never made it to the next level to go pro. Some players, though, do get opportunities after a strong performance in the university sports league to be able to get NHL contracts. We actually have seen some players, including one that we're going to talk about today, get that opportunity. So I just want to congratulate the UNB Reds, Gardner McDougall, one of the top speakers you'll ever hear. Gardner actually also helped the St. John Sea Dogs to the Memorial Cup not too long ago. Of course, last year when the Sea Dogs were hosting the tournament, they lost out early in the first round of the playoffs in the Quebec League, even though they were expected to contend for the league championship, which is why they put into host it. And after that happened, they fired the coaching staff. They brought in Gardner McDougall because his UNB season was over. And he went in as a temporary interim head coach and took them from that all the way to a national championship in junior hockey as well. So he has that on his resume too. I am sure he's had opportunities to go to the higher levels, maybe not directly to the NHL, but either major junior or the American League or something higher level. I mean, it wouldn't even shock me if NHL teams have reached out to him for at least an assistant role for the accomplishments he's had, but he's quite content to stay here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. He's born in PEI. Obviously must like the smaller town mentality, capacity, how everything works. I don't know, but just want to acknowledge that perfect season for them to be back-to-back U-Sport national champions. On to the NHL news. Longtime NHLer Wayne Simmonds has officially called it a career. This won't come as a surprise to anybody because Wayne Simmonds has not played this season, so it's not shocking news by any means, but he's finally made it official. Apparently, he's going to sign a one-day contract on April the 13th and retire as a Philadelphia Flyer. Of course, he's played for a few other teams, including the Kings and the Leafs and others, but I think it's fair to say he spent the kind of like the best part of his career, was most productive, most successful during his run with the Flyers. There is a lot of expectations that the Wayne train will get opportunities in the world of hockey and other capacities, whether it be player development or other parts of the off-ice part of the NHL. So congratulations to Simmonds on a strong career. He played 15 years, over 1,000 games, and over 500 points. So certainly another example of perseverance. Obviously he had to work hard for everything he had. Was not a high draft pick. He had to overcome, I believe he went through the OHL draft I think twice before he was picked up, and it was actually Mike Fuda that drafted him in the OHL. Mike Fuda then left the OHL to get an opportunity with the Los Angeles Kings, and he was part of the management team there that drafted Simmonds later into the NHL as well. So Fuda certainly played a big role in kind of help Simmonds find some opportunities, but he had to do the work to earn it, and certainly had to do the work to maintain it and carve out the career that he did. So congrats to the Wayne Train on a heck of a career. We do have a suspension. Dmitry Kulikov of the Florida Panthers, which we knew was coming. We announced yesterday from NHL Player Safety had announced that they were having a hearing with him today after an illegal check to the head was called against Lightning forward Connor Sheary. Obviously, it was a case where the head was the primary contact, and he's been given a suspension for 2 games. So, like I said, nothing surprising here. Kulikov doesn't have a deep history of being in trouble with player safety. Based on the situation, I think the 2 games is fine here in this case. But he will miss the next 2 for Florida. Some other news and notes around the league, including some injury updates and roster updates as well. The Devils today have sent down goalie Nico Dawes and defenseman Tyler Witherspoon to the American Hockey League. Of course, since they acquired Jake Allen at the deadline, the Devils have had 3 goalies as well. So Dawes will go down and get some work in the AHL. The Montreal Canadiens today confirmed and announced that number 5 overall pick last year's NHL draft, David Reinbacher, is coming over to North America and will be joining their American Hockey League team in Laval after playing this past season in Switzerland. Based on what I've seen and heard, it doesn't sound like his year in the Swiss League was the greatest, but a lot of people are now kind of second guessing that was the best place for him to be for his own personal development and should help him get adjusted to the North American game. And we'll see. Be curious to see how the high pick makes out. I know a lot of people have a curiosity of how this is going to go for Montreal. There was, I guess, to some degree, a little bit of a controversial pick. There were some people thought the Habs should have went in a different direction, but he does look like a really solid top defender. So we'll see how the adjustment comes and how he does. But the expectation is he'll practice this week and hopefully get into games in the American Hockey League possibly next weekend. Chicago today announced they've recalled Wyatt Kaiser from the American Hockey League. The Flyers have recalled a couple of players, including forward Ollie Leixell and defenseman Adam Ginning. To do that, they have to free up some space. So the belief is that they have the contract of defenseman Ryan Ellis likely moved to long-term injury reserve, which is something they have not had to do yet this year. The Nashville Predators today also recalled defenseman Mark Del Gizzo as well from the AHL, and the Penguins have assigned defenseman Jack Ivani back down to the American Hockey League. The Rangers today also confirmed defenseman Ryan Lindgren is going to be out. Molly Walker of the New York Post confirmed that he's likely looking at a few weeks on the shelf after getting hurt in the yesterday's game against the New York Islanders. So that's certainly going to be a big blow for the Rangers. They've been dealing with other absences on their blue line, but for the most part, guys stepping in to get bigger roles, like a guy like Zach Jones, for example, has been playing very well. And for the most part, the team hasn't missed a beat too bad. So we'll see. Hopefully they want Lindgren ready for the playoffs. So he's definitely, like I said, a warrior. For him to leave a game and not come back, you knew it had to be serious. They were concerned it could be worse and might even be longer term than that. But right now they're saying a couple of weeks. He should be good to go. Sheldon Keefe of the Toronto Maple Leafs as well confirmed that Mitch Marner is going to miss at least the next couple of games. Wasn't quite clear 100% exactly what the injury was for Marner, but apparently it's a high ankle sprain. So to be completely honest, I honestly think they should take their time with this. There's no need to rush Marner back. A lot of people say that this can drag on for an extended time. I know myself, not even being an NHL player, but I know back last year in the fall, I had a high ankle sprain, and it took a long time before my ankle felt normal again. I know I tried skating a few times, and for the most part, it wasn't too bad, but it took a while before I felt like I had full flexibility and power back. And, it's just, you don't want to mess around with it and make it worse. They're going to want him healthy as possible for the playoffs. And there's enough time right now that he probably could get healed up much better, so that when the playoffs roll around, he would be. I wouldn't rush him at all, really. I mean, they're still a good team without him. And secondly, their position in the standings is fairly safe, and I don't think they're really going to be changing spots. There's enough of a gap between the Leafs in third place and the Panthers and Bruins ahead of them that they're unlikely going to catch either of them. And there's also enough of a gap between them and the Lightning and the Red Wings, who are battling for the wildcard spots, that I don't think they're in real serious danger of being caught now. It's wouldn't, you never know. It is possible, but I think for the most part, they play at least 500 hockey, which is not that difficult for them, that they should be okay. So I would take their time with Marner. I would not rush him at all, but they make it sound like he's close, but it really hasn't been that long. When a high ankle sprain quite often is about 6 weeks. So we'll see where that goes. Now, the Edmonton Oilers today confirmed they've made a signing, and this is obviously a player coming from university hockey here in Canada, which is what I was referring to earlier. Goaltender Connor Auger gets a 2-year entry-level contract. He played for Brock University. So he just wrapped up his season playing in the National Championship University Cup tournament. Had a record this year of 20-6 with a 2.1 goals against average, 2.15 that is, and 932 save percentage. So certainly had a solid campaign. Auger will get a 2-year ELC and will make the jump. He does look like a promising goalie, but as we've seen before, as I mentioned, it is a big jump from Canadian university hockey to even like AHL or NHL. So it's not a real common feat to see players make the jump and have a long, steady career of it. It does happen. There are a few examples. I know one player that comes to mind that was in the NHL for a long time, which was a while ago now, was Steve Ruchin. He came through the university hockey campaign here, but certainly not a lot to make that path and turn out to be long-term successful. But I certainly wish Auger all the best. He does look like a promising goalie from what I've seen him play. The Calgary Flames today also announced a signing, and this one's a U.S. college free agent, which is Sam Morton, who's a 24-year-old left winger. So he gets a 1-year contract because of his age. Of course, like any ELC, it's a 2-way deal, and he will be eligible to join their American Hockey League affiliate here anytime. From the GM meetings today, we get some updates from some NHL insiders like Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnson. All the guys are down there covering the meetings, looking for intel on what the GMs are talking about. Apparently there is, according to Friedman, some appetite on the menu here to discuss video review a little bit further. One item that might be added to things they can review is the puck over glass situation. Now, the only thing he wasn't quite clear on is, are they looking at all scenarios involving puck over glass? So can the referee look at it to call a penalty, or can it only be a case of if they don't call a penalty and that the other team challenges and feels there should have been, can they look at it? So we don't know the parameters of exactly how that would work, but it has been brought up by enough GMs that it seems to have, like I said, a bit of an appetite to at least consider talking about it further, to make it to the bigger group, because obviously like how they usually break into small groups, talk about things, get some items on the agenda that they all want to kind of put forth and have further discussion on, and then they have like the bigger meetings later on. So we'll see if that goes anywheres. I mean, there are some scenarios where it could come in handy for sure, but the biggest concern with any of these things with video review is they don't want to make the game slow down any. They're content right now with the speed of things, and you don't want to add anything else that's going to take a long period of time and cause any long stoppages. But obviously at the same time, though, you want to get things right. So we'll see if that goes anywheres. And according to Chris Johnston, there's also news coming out of these meetings that the NHL is going to be participating in another behind-the-scenes type of series with Amazon, like we saw the Toronto Maple Leafs do a couple seasons back when they were followed around for their season. I believe I can't remember what it was called. I think it's called All In or something, where they kind of follow a team around for their entire year, getting lots of clips for this documentary that show them behind the scenes, kind of trying to win a championship. This is going to be different, though. Instead of Amazon focusing on a team in the pursuit of a championship, it's going to focus on a group of star players. So 10 to 12 of the top NHL players. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it sounds like they would each have cameras kind of following them around to some capacity. I don't know the more details than that right now, but there is the word that the NHL and Amazon are working together on another behind the scenes type of documentaries type series. So that'll be interesting to see once we know more. Hard to say when it'll be hitting the airwaves, or I would suspect probably at the earliest we start to record next season. So we'll see. Might be a while before we hear a lot more on that. As well, the San Jose Sharks today confirmed GM Mike Greer said that they fired their scout in the Russia area, which is Igor Aranko. Greer says that they basically fired him because he was not fulfilling his duties. And given the fact of where they're at in the state of their franchise and going through a pretty lengthy, serious rebuild, they need scouts all over the world in all the big areas where, most of the talent is, that they can rely on, and that he just wasn't reliable to get the work done. So they've moved on from Igor Aranko as their Russian area scout. Now, under the trade section of the video, a few things I want to focus on here today. Elliotte Friedman made another appearance on Vancouver media on the Donnie and Daly show, talking about a few things, one of which was the future of defenseman Filip Hronek. Now, of course, Hronek's been a player we've talked about it a couple of times on occasion here recently, essentially because he needs a new contract, and there's a lot of debate on whether or not he and his agent are going to come to terms with the Canucks. Now, Friedman's made mention here that he believes there is a pathway to get this deal done and to keep him in the mix. I mean, obviously, Quinn Hughes is the top defenseman, and the main resistance, you could say, from the Canucks would be to not pay him more than Quinn Hughes, which is completely understandable. Hronek is a good defenseman. He is not Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is one of the top defensemen in the NHL who will be in the conversation for the Norris Trophy this year. So, but at the same time, Hronek's proven to be extremely valuable, has been a really good puck mover, good point producer, and they certainly have lots of interest to keep him very much in the mix. But there's been talk that he's looking for a contract somewhere in the neighborhood of Mikhail Sergachev, around an $8.5 million range, where it sounds like the Canucks, according to Friedman, definitely would not want to go over $7.5. That would put him just a little bit below Quinn Hughes, which would be more where they're comfortable with. Now, at the same time, we've also heard that Nikita Zadorov may not be able to get what he's looking for to stay in Vancouver, and there's apparently some interest at a lower number to bring back defenseman Tyler Myers, which certainly confuses me very much. But that's, I guess, what's out there, according to Friedman, from his Vancouver connection. So in Filip Hronek's case, if they're willing to play ball and take a team deal that will put him around 7.5 or better, on a longer-term contract, there's a good chance Hronek stays. If the rumors persist that he's going to want that 8.5 or more money, then they're going to end up having to get that elsewhere, and you could end up seeing the Vancouver Canucks possibly go down the road of a trade. Now, staying with Vancouver, there's also a lot of talk around the future of Elias Lindholm, as I made mention before. He hasn't really been the most productive lately. It started off the first few games really good with Vancouver, and after that, it's been a case of, just a lot of it is where he's been playing too, and the line mates and where he's at. It's not working out. Now we'll see. Maybe he has a really strong playoff, and maybe things change. But as of right now, it is looking more and more likely that Lindholm could very well end up being a rental in Vancouver. Now, of course, around the deadline, because they did that deal to acquire him a good distance ahead of time, there was a lot of rumors that he could possibly be moved again. There was talk about a 3-team trade that we had talked about here on the channel, which would have seen him possibly ending up with the Boston Bruins. Now, apparently, the Canucks management had to have some good chats with him about these rumors and to kind of, smooth things over, because apparently there was some talk that he and his agent were not real thrilled and kind of upset about what they were hearing, considering they hadn't been in Vancouver for very long, and now they're hearing about a potential trade yet again. But considering all that, a lot of people still think he was brought into Vancouver for more than anything else as Pedersen insurance in case they couldn't get him signed. Since he is signed and will be there long term on a big money contract, it may prove more difficult to keep Lindholm, and it might be more likely that he does walk as a UFA. If he does hit the market this summer, I would certainly expect the Boston Bruins to be all over that to bring him in. They've been heavily linked to him and had shown interest since he left Calgary. Now, there's been lots of talk about the future of UC Saros and Nashville as well. The latest intel and articles from Nashville Hockey Now suggest that Barry Trotz is not really willing to move him unless he gets what he wants. He's not going to take an underwhelming package, and now we have an idea what the package would be. Their belief is it's probably going to take at least a solid 3 assets, and we know a team like New Jersey, who's been very much pretty vocal about wanting to upgrade their goaltending, and even though they acquired Jake Allen and Kaapo Kähkönen, it's believed that between Saros, Markstrom, and Ullmark, they're going to be in the market to try to get one of those guys this offseason. If they want to have hope to get a guy like Saros out of Nashville, Trotz is going to be looking for a top younger player on the roster who can help them now, most likely a player like a Dawson Mercer. They might settle for a guy like Holtz, but I believe a player like Mercer would be preferred. You're probably looking at a top prospect like a defenseman like Seamus Casey and a first-round pick. That's a pretty big ask. I mean, those are 3 very valuable assets to the New Jersey Devils. Now, the goaltending position is very, very important, and certainly something they want to solidify and stabilize to get that team back on track. Even with the coaching change, we haven't really seen much of a bump. The team has still been quite up and down, more down than up lately, and not trending in a good direction here. So goaltending is part of it, but even lately they've had better goaltending. Like Jake Allen's played 2 games now. Won one of them. He's had a shaky start, but settled in and they won that game. The last game they lost, but he only gave up 2 goals. They were not able to really score, which has been a little bit of an issue in the last little bit too. So at the end of the day here, the Devils have some issues. Goaltending is one of them, but that's a hefty price tag to get a guy like Saros. So we'll see what they do. If another team wants to step up, that's what the similar type package that they're going to be looking for. And of course, in Ottawa, Dave Pagnotta, the fourthperiod.com, references the fact that if the Sens do decide they want to move a guy like Jake Chychrun, there should be lots of interest. There was a bunch of teams, about 4 that he acknowledged that were around him a fair bit at the deadline, including both the teams in the state of Florida. The Panthers and the Lightning were both very much in the mix. The Flyers were one of them as well. And, I think if you look at a team like Florida, for example, Florida has a lot of money tied up next year, but they also have a lot of flexibility in who's going to be on that roster. They are very much in go-for-it mode here. They have a lot of guys that are UFA, like a lot. Not only their players that were picked up at the deadline, like a Tarasenko, but they also have some key players like Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, Anthony Stolarz, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, like Nick Cousins. Like there's quite a few unrestricted free agents on that team and on that roster right now. They have about $21 million tied up in available cap space next year, but they only have 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie signed. So they have flexibility in some senses, but if you take a look at Sam Reinhart, I mean, I know he's probably going to sign for less than a lot of people think, given the state tax advantage that they have there in the state of Florida. But still, he's still going to eat up, even if he takes $9 million, which I still think, based on what he's producing this year, that he could definitely get more in the open market. But let's say 9.5, something like along those lines, something in the Tkachuk range. Maybe just a hair under Matthew Tkachuk, for example. Which I think is, based on how he's performing this year, is a team-friendly deal. But like I said, will he do that year after year? And also, has he done it enough times to justify 11, 12 million? I don't know about that. But he's having a phenomenal year. He's been a great hockey player for a long time. He's definitely going to get paid handsomely. And I know there's a heavy interest between he and the Panthers to keep him in the Panthers organization. So assuming that gets done, that's going to eat up a lot of that $21 million. You still have a lot of holes to fill on your roster after that. They may have a hard time keeping backup goalie Anthony Stolarz. They still have Spencer Knight in the minors. I don't know what they're going to do there. His results in the AHL this year have been okay, but not great for what you think to see with him. I know Tarasenko would probably like to stay down there. Again, I think there's interest, but it's tricky. On the back end, they've only got 3 defensemen. So they just got Forsling done. But then you got Montour, you've got Ekman-Larsson, Kulikov's not signed. What do you do there? It's going to be tricky. They've only got Mikkola as well as Aaron Ekblad and Forsling signed for next year or beyond. Now, I wonder about Brandon Montour, and I know he's not signed, But if they really wanted a lefty like Chychrun, would they consider moving Montour for Chychrun? I mean, Montour would have to agree to a new contract with the Senators, and it would kind of help the Senators level things out. But if you look at the Panthers decor, they don't have that many righties, really. Montour and Ekblad are the main two. So I would assume that Brandon Montour will be a priority to get signed. But if you sign Montour and you sign Reinhart, that's going to eat up a lot of that money that's available. So they're going to have to do something to, Zito's been pretty good at finding value players, so to speak, at cheaper contracts. So I'll be curious to see what they do. But knowing that they were heavily involved in the Chychrun sweepstakes, having all these defensemen unsigned, I just wonder if could Montour be in play or will he be signed? Because I know from an Ottawa perspective, he would be very attractive. But I don't know what they would want to do there since they don't have that many right-handed defensemen on contract. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.